Hello my friends! I bet you weren't expecting another episode. Well, there's one more. And I'll tell you why there's one more. I played the game again. Just by myself, just for fun. Because I wanted to take all the knowledge that I'd learned from my first playthrough and see if I could alter a few things. So I wasn't interested in controlling the US, Russia, Poland or India, because those, those countries I feel like I understand exactly what I need to do. And in my previous campaign, the US was way more powerful than it should have been. Anyway, so eventually the counterattack would have been brutal, but the point is that I wasn't too concerned about these. What I was concerned about was the way I'd played the UK and the way I played China. And more specifically, I was thinking about the way in which, as the UK, I'd gained control of the sea, creating, an unrecoverable position for Germany in terms of that they would never leave the main body of Europe from either direction. But that I had failed to slow them down really in Europe, which was leading to the situation where where Russia was going to get crushed. In amongst, tactical mistakes in playing Russia itself. Anyway, I wanted to I don't normally sort of show my test games, but I wanted to show you guys my test games because there's some really interesting conclusions you can take from it. There are some things I want to demonstrate. Okay, so this is my test game. And there's a lot that I learned from it. So anyway, let's ignore Russia because that's AI controlled. We'll have a quick look at the US, but that's AI controlled too, but it's interesting for a different reason. It is just after the attack on Pearl Harbor, which is basically where I stopped playing my test game. So I actually played quite a bit of this game. Now, I didn't bother with the naval side of things. I just put my ships in port and basically ignored them. So in terms of the naval battle, I'm miles behind, but that wasn't the point. The point of a test game was just to actually test the things that I wanted to test. So I just want to share some conclusions with you guys. So the first thing that's interesting is this anti-tank gun here has no supply, no morale, and like 8% readiness. And yet, let me just. I never bothered playing in. You can tell I never bothered playing down here really, because it wasn't really something I wanted to test. But I just wanted to show you guys. So this bomber has only got 3 supply and not like the greatest stats on Earth, but it's tacticals. You can see here that it's only getting. See, it gets 2 kills here, or an estimated 2 kills. If I detach it, it's not going to get any kills whatsoever. But there's 2 main conclusions, which is that having a HQ controlling a unit does make an incredible difference. But also that aircraft are just generally really bad. There's just no other way of putting it. You just don't... For all the costs associated with them, you really don't get much out of them. And that's a pretty big deal. So that's the first thing, is when I played as the UK here, you'll notice that the technology is lagging behind. I just got rid of all my tech, because originally this was a test game to see if I could save France. And I couldn't save France. Maybe if I wasn't playing on expert, France would be savable. But I did detain Germany in France for quite some time, but I could not save France. But when I put all my units in France, what happened was some parachutists landed in London, capturing London. And this caused the US to go ballistic. So they joined the war pretty much just after the fall of France. So you can see here that AI United States has amassed an absolute armada of units, despite still having a great, a very solid amount of money invested technologically. They have put together this massive army, pretty much uncontested, and the massive army with special forces and everything on the West Coast as well. So Pearl Harbor has just literally begun. And I didn't control the US, but they joined the war so incredibly early, so you can actually cheese them into the war early by allowing them to attack the UK. And it's not difficult to then remove the parachutists that land in London, because they've got no supply. You can just move units in and surround them. You can probably even kill them with garrisons. Speaking of which, obviously a load of these Home Guard units spawned when the parachutists landed in London. So you'll even be given the units to get rid of them. This also caused Spain to join the war. Bizarrely, I don't know if it's seen like an act of weakness or whatever. But Spain joining the war means that you can land your forces that you built to liberate France in Spain. And this is much better for you, because you can immediately establish a full and proper supply chain. And then the Axis will declare war on Vichy France when you land in Spain significantly and win the battle there. The Axis will declare war on Vichy France to get access to you. They won't want to go through this tiny choke. They'll actually declare, and this will cause even more nations to slide towards the Allies way early. Argentina starts sliding towards the Allies much faster. Mongolia slides towards Russia. And I think Switzerland slides 15% towards the Allies. If you're willing to put in a diplomatic campaign with the US, you could get Switzerland, which is also super interesting. But the biggest, my biggest sort of goal with this test game was to learn how to defend China. And you can see here it's now January 1942, and China has level 1 infantry weapons, nearly level 2, infantry warfare, artillery level 1, anti-aircraft defense level 1 with level 2 almost on the way. And you can see here that the positions are more or less unbroken and more or less undamaged. This is the start of my turn. I've got 200 MPPs I've not spent yet, and you can see here that the defenses are immense, immaculate. So, how did I do it? Well, interestingly, it's a combination of two things. One is to get rid of all aircraft. I already talked about aircraft are completely useless on expert mode. For you, I mean, they do okay for the enemy, but they're useless for you. Well, if you sell the fighter early and get rid of the advanced fighters tech, not only do you get a lot of money back for selling those things, but you're not losing money turn after turn after turn repairing the fighters. The fighters bleed. These have just turned up, the flying tigers. I've not touched them. But you just bleed and bleed and bleed and bleed money repairing the fighters. So that's one thing that's very important not to do, is to not use the fighters at all. Another thing that's interesting is there's a way to, I don't know if we want to call it cheating because it's part of the mechanics of the game. But if you use the shift key to swap the positions of two units, it seems to ignore the line of control rules completely and allows you to do some things that you shouldn't be able to do. So, if you move a unit, you cannot reinforce it. This is, you know, something that we all know. Say I take this plane. I could reinforce this plane if I wanted to, but if I move the plane, I can't reinforce the plane. Okay, it's not allowed. But weirdly, if you use the swap positions command like this, you can still repair the unit even though it's moved. So this is huge. It means that you don't have to repair on the front line. You can actually slide units out and repair them. Additionally, they do not lose their, for whatever bizarre reason, they basically don't lose their entrenchment when they do this. So if I, for example, hit this unit here, okay, so I hit that unit. Now, I have 2 entrenchment of 3, and this unit here has 2 entrenchment because of its position. If I use this technique to move these units, you will see that it still holds some of its entrenchment, so it still has 1 out of 3 entrenchment. It seems to lose like 1 entrenchment on doing this. But it allows you to move fresh units back and forth between the front line and the rear line, allowing you to repair on the rear line without losing your position on the front line, and you just conga your units back and forth constantly. It makes it almost impossible to break them. Now there's one other thing that's weird about the this ability to slide, and that is, for example, this unit here cannot move to this position. Or, for example, this artillery does not have enough movement to get on the hills. It's not blocked by anything, there are no enemies touching it, there's no zone of control issue. It just simply doesn't have enough action points to get up here on this hill. So it doesn't appear to be a space that I can go to. But if you use the swap positions command, once again, I don't know why this is the case, it makes no sense, but it is the case. You can swap to a position that you wouldn't be able to swap to normally. So you can see that it is possible for you to effectively swap your units into positions that are impossible for them to get to by using the swap positions command. So the swap positions command seems to ignore, for whatever reason, most of the game's rules. I outstayed my welcome up here, but I could still repair them and carry on. But this position in my test game, one thing that I really did learn is that this position is untenable. So you might as well just run away from it and let the Japanese have it. This town does not provide any material wealth, so there's no harm in letting it go, and no reason to keep it. Same for this settlement here, Yanku. It offers no military points, so you might as well just fall back. But it is worth holding on to for at least a short time, just to make sure you don't get surrounded down here while you're still holding this front position. But as they start to close in, then you should give up these positions. Also, artillery cannot get kills unless it's level 1. Once it's level 1, it can get kills. Because at level 0, it has no attack values, so it only does the demoralization damage. But at level 1, it has an attack value, and that means that it can do 1 or 2 points of damage, which is pretty huge. Oh, and right on schedule, there's 1 point of damage. Artillery really is how you will win in China. You can see that I can do 4 damage without taking any in return by just abusing my artillery. Obviously you want to beware of this breakthrough here happened because well, it was just a test game, so I wasn't really, you know, playing it out super mega hard, but you'll probably... I built fortifications down here because I thought I was going to get pushed back, but I wasn't. You probably want to actually build a fortification line here. It seems reasonable. You don't want to lose the industrial center if you can at all help it. But artillery is definitely the way to go, because it will prevent so much damage. I can't understate how much damage it prevents. And then when you finally... And you'll have a lot of money if you play your cards right down here. When you finally get the upgrade for them, you're only allowed to build 2. So you've got the upgrade and 2 artillery pieces. That's the maximum you're allowed to have. You're also only allowed to have 2 anti-aircraft guns. Otherwise, I would have bought an additional one. You can actually see here, I'm not allowed any more anti-air. I'm not allowed any more artillery. That is your done deal. And I've lost 4 corps and 5 armies. This is like by January 1942 with no support. So artillery and anti-air, and you can see the technology here. As I said before, it is the way forward. These aircraft have been nothing but a cost for Japan. When they attack infantry with the anti-aircraft upgrades, just level 1, especially if the anti-aircraft guns get involved, they lose craft all the time. Just constantly bleeding aircraft. And they're not cheap. And that just blunts the Japanese ability to wage war is blunted terribly by having to constantly replace craft that they can't afford to replace. So anyway, I just thought that this was interesting, since I did a test game just to see what works and what doesn't work. The bottom line is, aircraft only hurt you. So sell them. Sell them all. And don't buy any technology for aircraft. The only country that could possibly get away on this difficulty with buying aircraft and them being actually useful is the USA. Simply because they've got, well, they get a lot of aircraft for free, and they have a lot of time with which to mobilize their technology. But for everyone else, aircraft are just a perpetual cost. The AI playing Russia has decided to do this, and do this. But you can see here that the AI has not played the greatest. It's lost the oil fields, which is really an unacceptable loss for Russia. So, you know, don't let the AI play. But the purpose of this test game was not to it was not to play Russia at all. I know what I needed to do here. It was to experiment with ways to sabotage Germany as much as possible. You just can't beat them in a direct engagement. The technological edge is too much. They've got fully upgraded units. They're too mobile. There's too many of them. And you don't have time to set up proper positions. But with Spain joining the war, again, because the Axis had diplomatic success in Spain, again, I just landed in Spain. Originally, I had planned to land in France early, which is why I grabbed amphibious warfare. Although the original plan was to save France, but that's impossible. But I had all these tanks and units ready to go to push France, and then Spain joined the war, and I just set on Spain instead and pushed them down pretty quickly. So you can definitely win the war against Spain, and if you can secure part of France, you can then go after Italy, who are I don't know if they have some sort of technological penalties or what, but their units are garbage and they just melt. They melt like ice cream in a bonfire. So you can go after them here. You see that Germany committed a couple of units to try and save the position, but I just since I bought mobility, I just walked around them. Now they're locked in. And once again, the artillery is the way forward. You just deploy that artillery, man. This is not even level 1 artillery. I mean, I would definitely get it for the UK too, because it's so good. But yeah, they attack. The artillery attacks them. Their morale gets smashed down, and then if you've got the surround on them, their supplies drop to nothing, and then you can just kill them. So that is it, really. One last note. I don't know if this is true or not, but I just have a gut feeling that artillery gains experience much faster if you attack with it rather than waiting for it to fire defensively. I don't know if it's true or not, but I just noticed that my artillery was leveled way quicker, or it seemingly leveled quicker, when I was directing its fire rather than letting it defend attacks. Interestingly, the best thing to do with artillery is to constantly target units with the highest levels of morale and readiness, because it most greatly damages the ability for the Japanese to push you. So with some minor adjustments here to just hold this position, I could have just used the engineers to fortify this area, which I haven't. And if you fortify this line properly, here, 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 and here, this is where I would fortify. I think the engineers actually start on this tile, so that's helpful. This can absolutely just be held. And you can see here that my HQ has actually reached level 2 as well. Okay, apart from these learnings, the only other thing that I would knowledge or wisdom that I would convey is on the first couple of turns, I got quite lucky with the Japanese losing engagements and me taking very little damage. I think that that's essential, because what happens with your guys is every time they win a battle or draw a battle, the HQ gains experience, and every time they lose a battle, the HQ actually slowly loses experience. And what that means is that if you see these 2 HQs I have at the back, they're like rating 5. I think they all start at 6. I think. Yeah. They all start at 6. And what will happen is, if you lose battles early on, your rating will go down from 6 to 5. And when it does that, it will slowly cause a cascade of losses. As the HQ gets worse, the guys under its command get worse. Then they lose more, which means that the HQ becomes even worse. And it starts a downward spiral that basically will eventually cause your line to collapse. So this top HQ, you can see it's leveled up a huge amount, and it's rating 6, and this one's leveled up even more. And that's because they have been constantly winning here. I've been constantly taking victories wherever I can get them and getting them defensively. And that's really critical. There is a fairly strong amount of RNG in the game, and you do want to make sure that the first couple of turns go your way. And there's nothing you can do about it, it's just RNG. So if it goes horribly bad and the ratings of your HQs drop to 5, especially the top one and the bottom one, then you're better off just reloading and ending the turn again and seeing if something different happens. Also, it didn't happen in my test game. It's possible for research to break through, but it's also possible for research to stagnate. This is also totally RNG as well. If your infantry weapons research stagnates, China is doomed. That it just cannot happen. So if you end the turn and your infantry weapons research has gone up like 2%, that means it's stagnated. It should go up around 5 to 7% a turn. If it's a breakthrough, it'll be like 20% plus, and you'll get a little message. But if it stagnates, that will be the end of you. So you basically have to restart. There's enough RNG in the game in certain aspects that are completely critical on expert. On lower difficulties, not a problem. On expert, you cannot take having your infantry weapons research stagnate. Because if it stagnates, the Japanese will have... they literally just got level 2 weapons last turn. You can see that they're still running very many guys with level 1 weapons. They literally just got it last turn, and I will get it this turn. Or within the near future. But if it stagnates, you won't get it in time, and you'll start losing badly. So, there is certainly some big RNG elements to the game. Still, I may, because I'm actually a bit inspired to replay the game with everything that I've learnt and actually, beat it decisively on expert. So that's something I'm really thinking about doing in the future. But only if you guys are interested. I mean, these series are not usually hugely viewed, but that is a challenge which I am interested in attempting in the future, just to show everything that I've learned. But yeah, I mean... oh yeah, one last thing I forgot to mention is, although I let the AI control Russia, what I did do is I didn't invade Poland, and I did not annex the Baltic states. And this is leaving the door open for the UK to be invaded and not annexing the Baltic states actually causes diplomatic repercussions when Germany inevitably declares on all of them around the world. That pushes many countries away from neutrality and towards the Allies. So it does feel like a mistake to take the extra space, because it just doesn't matter. You don't want to fight the Germans down here anyway. You want to fight them here, and here, or here, or here. This is where you actually want to fight them. Is right back here. And whether they get to you a turn or two early, it doesn't hugely matter. If anything, you want them to sort of be on time, so that they are overextended and in your face by the time the winter turns up. Because you can see here, it's January, the AI has pushed too far, and now you've got units like this tank that have no supplies, just sat in a tile here with no hope of escape. And then, just to give you an idea, you see you can just come in from behind here and absolutely ruin this guy. Germany cannot afford to lose these vehicles. They are what makes their push work. So having them around like this with no supply is of huge benefit to you, and that means you actually want them to push. So you can pick off the tanks. The infantry is actually not so dangerous. It's the tanks that are scary. But anyway, I didn't play Russia, I let the AI play it. It wasn't... I felt like I knew what I needed to do there. I really wanted to focus in my test game on just playing China to get a real feeling for how to save them, and to play the UK and get a feeling for how they can impact the land battle. So it definitely can be done. I think the expert mode can be beaten, but you do need to really understand that the naval battle, yeah, win it, obviously it's helpful, but don't focus on it. It's not particularly important. And sell all your aircraft. Sell all your aircraft, air technology, the lot, because it's useless. All it will do is cost you money without really achieving anything for you. So I highly recommend that you just sell it all. And if you sell it all, you'll find that you will build as much stuff as you can possibly, that you're possibly allowed to deploy. You will have a massive army very fast, and then you can use it to actually do stuff like this. So this might be a future campaign. I might do it just to make Ramgar happy. Very beatable on expert. Obviously Playing again, fully understanding the game, it's a very different world to playing it without understanding it. And I don't necessarily think that it's a good or realistic thing that aircraft are so unbelievably terrible and a complete newbie trap. But that is how the game works on this difficulty. So, that is it for now. Special Forces here. France is completely doomed. Isn't that awesome? Oh! One very, very, very last thing. If you put a load of British units in France, the French will not surrender. And by a load, I mean like 10 units. When Germany takes Paris, France will not surrender. They will move their government down to Bordeaux. Then, you know, after they lose more units, they will eventually surrender. But they won't surrender immediately. They'll move their government to Bordeaux, and because they do that, when you re-invade France, and if you land at Bordeaux, France will consider itself liberated and will rejoin the fight. Which is not the most useful thing on Earth, but it does mean that France will start generating MPPs again from the territory that you've liberated. And it will seriously undermine the Italians' national morale. The only thing is that I never bothered with the naval battles at all, because that's not something I was looking at in my test game. So Italy is happy at the moment because I never bothered to play the North Africa part of the campaign. Since I already won in North Africa, so I know exactly what the strategy is there to win that region. I just left it, like much of this test game. So anyway, I hope that gives some insight into what I do for fun, is improve my play and study games. I hope this gives you some insight and enjoyed this little test game look. And who knows, maybe in the future I will play again, and I will play to I'll play it through to the end to actually win the ground battle. Alright, that's it for now. I hope you guys enjoyed it. See you guys next time.